Welcome to this edition of the Journey Navigation podcast. Today I have a special guest who is my good friend Julian Robus, who is going to talk to us about meditation and mindfulness and all the things that we probably should have fundamentally incorporated in our life, but he's under this earth to provide more guidance, I think. So I think I'm just going to invite him on here and see if this works.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I think
Okay, can you hear me okay?
so.
Oh, you keep breaking up.
I'm breaking up?
Yeah, you keep freezing.
Okay. It's still not so good, or?
I'm plugged into the main, so my
Okay.
I'm not Wi-Fi or anything. It's a hard link.
Okay. Let's see if we can make this work. If not, then I guess we'll have to figure something else out. Maybe streaming just takes a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay, or?
I can hear you perfectly. You just keep freezing physically.
Okay. Yeah, no worries then. That will be okay for now. Yes. So thank you for doing this.
No problem.
Yeah, we've been talking quite a bit over the years. I think it was almost exactly 4 years ago.
Yeah, February 2018, I came back from America.
Yeah.
We met shortly afterwards.
Yeah.
As usual, by unbelievable coincidences, but that seems to be my life.
Yeah. So and you've helped me a lot over that period of time, at least in different periods of time, I guess, when I either needed it or was in a place where I needed just some assistance. But I guess it's maybe just makes sense to just ask who you are for everybody who's listening or who will listen eventually, and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Julian. I live on the southeast corner of the UK. I started my working life as an engineer. Very quickly accidentally fell into high-end technical sales, which was a great career. But unfortunately, it became very quickly very stressful, which became anxiety, which became depression. I didn't even know what depression was. I just knew that I didn't want to be here anymore because I just couldn't take it. So that was to December 2008. So through my sales career, I'd been into personal development for 23 odd years, very heavily. So I'd met Jim Rohn in my early 20s, and he started the whole ball rolling in terms of personal development. But none of that was helping at all. So I don't believe in doctors. I don't believe in drugs or medication. So I had to find a natural way to get out of my stress, anxiety, depression, and my mind just would not stop. It was just non-stop driving me crazy. And there was a profound sadness from the earliest memories. All I can ever remember is a profound sadness, and I had no idea why it was there. So somehow, for the love of my family, I found the strength and the courage to carry on, and I started looking further afield. So I looked into NLP, EFT, life coaching. I did a Reiki course. I did hypnosis course. Anything and everything that I could find to try and get some peace. And nothing was working. Now, the one thing that my mind kept telling me to keep away from, because it was religious, was meditation. So I struggled on for 2 more years with my depression. And then I decided, that's it. This is the one thing I've not tried. I'm going to ignore my mind. And I went off and I learned meditation. Huge improvement. Absolute massive improvement. And the guy that taught me said, listen, he said, if you take your personal development stuff and you become a stress reduction, mindfulness and meditation instructor and you put it together, do you know how many people you can help? And I went, yeah, okay. Sounds like a nice thing to do. So the same year, 2010, I went off and did a stress reduction, mindfulness and meditation diploma. And I just carried on working on myself, and things started to get better and better and better. And then in 2016, again, as I said, my life revolves around the most unbelievable coincidences, including how we met. In 2016, I was walking the dog one morning. I bumped into a neighbour, and he said, "Oh, so how's it going?" "Oh, my wife's not so well. She's got OCD and anxiety, and she's not been out of the house for 3 months, and she's got depression and all this stuff." So I said, "Well, look, I'm a meditation instructor. Why don't you send her down, and I'll see if I can help her." So it was another week before she turned up. A lady turned up, really not in a good place. And I thought I'd just teach her to meditate and some stuff. Before I knew it, I was teaching her what I taught myself all those years. So we had an hour and a half or whatever, and off she went. And she came back the following Friday, different person. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done, right? So this is going to be a big up and a big down. She came back the following week, more improvements. And then she came back the fourth week, and I thought, what is going on? Right? There's no way somebody like this should be improving this fast. So on the fourth week, she walks in and she says, "I went to see my mental health team today." And I said, "Hang on, you didn't tell me you were seeing a mental health team." "Oh yeah," she said, "I've been seeing them for 3 or 4 years." She said, "But normally I pull up outside, my husband leaves the car running, I go in, I have a panic attack, I come straight back out, get in the car and go back home." So I said, "So what happened?" "Well," she said, "I walked in, sat down, and the woman said, 'What are you doing here?' And she said, 'Oh, I've been seeing this guy, Julian, and he's taught me to meditate, and he's taught me this and how the mind works and blah, blah, blah.' And the woman went, 'Whoa, whatever he's got, we haven't. Go see him.' So she came back and we did some more sessions. And I think it was about the fourth or the fifth or the sixth session, her husband knocked on the door. So I opened the door, said, 'How you doing?' Blah, blah. He said, 'I want to word with you.' So I said, 'What?' He said, 'She's out shopping. She's been to B&Q, she's been to Wickes, she's been to here, she's been to there.' I said, 'Hang on, I thought she's had anxiety for 3 months and not been out of the house.' He said, 'Yeah, thanks to you, she's out spending my money.' And he smiled and he shook my hand and off he went. And that was the first time that I realized that what I'd found was very, very different compared to what the mental health, the happiness fraternity is teaching. And it took a good 4 or 5 more clients before I realized that because I'd started studying the Eastern Masters and their wisdom is thousands of years old, they know it. They know it right to the core. They know why we get stressed, why we get unhappy, how it accidentally happens, and how to get out of it. And I'd used it for so many years on myself, it just become the way that I was. So the minute I started teaching other people, supposedly meditation, I was automatically teaching them this stuff as well. So that's basically the upshot of it. My little journey to sort myself out took 9 years. I've had 4 unexpected shifts in awareness or in consciousness. The last big one was in the middle of 2018. That's what's known as Satori. And I had absolutely no idea what had happened for months and months and months afterwards. I just knew that I had no fears anymore. I had no wants anymore. All my searching had stopped. Thousands of books I've read and videos and courses I've done. No interest in any of that. And I lost all sense of time. So life became very, very different. And that's never changed. So after Satori, you what's known as live in the world, but not of it. So instead of being a ground's eye view, you're a bird's eye view. So it's a bit like if you can imagine standing in the middle of a busy motorway at rush hour. There's traffic everywhere, and you're getting pushed every which way by the wind. That's how most of us live in our mind. And then you're standing there with this chaos all around you, and all of a sudden you hear and you look up, and there's a hot air balloon, and a rope ladder comes down, and you climb up the ladder, and you climb in the balloon, and the balloon goes up a bit, and now you can see all the traffic, and it's still quite chaotic, and it's noisy, and it's disturbing, but now you're up here, you're a bit away from it, and then the guy in the balloon pulls the gas, and up it goes a bit more, now the traffic is that big and you're up here and it's completely quiet and you see everything moving in the world, including the body, but you know that you're not that. And that's a very peaceful place to live from. It's not a choice, it's what happens. And that's what happened.
So is that based on, do you think it happened because of all the work you did, or how did the shift happen, you think?
It was never my intention. The only tension I ever had was how to get out of my stress, anxiety, and depression. And again, through the coincidences, first I came across Eckhart Tolle, then I came across Dr. David Hawkins. And one thing that Hawkins said, which stuck in my mind, I've got loads of his books and courses and stuff. And one thing he said was that you cannot make anything happen, you can only clear the path. So the little story he used to give was, he said that the water flows where the canal is built. So after I found Hawkins, I then found Sadhguru and I did his inner engineering course. I then found Osho and Nisargadatta and Adyashanti and all these amazing teachers. And because of my engineering career, I'm a born problem solver, but I noticed patterns. And in all these teachings from all these various masters, I started to notice little bits and pieces that kept coming up all the time. And my coincidence thing carried on. I was in London on a Muji event, a 2-day weekend Muji event, and I didn't really want to go, but something in time kept saying, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. So I went to this Muji event.
That was when?
That was probably the middle of 2015.
Okay.
Something like 2016, something like that. And I did the first day, and it was all interesting. And did the second day, and we got to lunch, and there was a churchyard next to the hall, and we were all sitting in this lovely churchyard eating our lunch. And there was a young man with his girlfriend on the grass on a blanket, and he saw me on my own. And he went, "Hey, come sit with us. Come sit with us." So I went and sat down, and we're chatting away. And all of a sudden, completely out of context, he said, "Have you read I Am That?" And I said, "No, I've heard of it." And as the words "I am that" went through my mind, I got this energy from God knows where, went through my body, all the hairs on my arms stood up. And I looked up and I said, "You didn't bring me here to tell me to get I am that." And this energy went whoosh. No, whoa, okay. So the next day I ordered I Am That, and I started reading it. And out of all the spiritual books that I'd read, I Am That is the book of books. Osho's Book of Secrets is extraordinary, but I Am That is just something about it. And I started reading it, and I couldn't stop. And it was a reading on a whole different level. It was almost as if he was speaking to me, right, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. I could recognize all these steps that I'd unknowingly been through. And now you've got to do this. So, all lovely book. And I was blown away by it. And I still read it to this day. Every night I read a chapter, just over and over and over again. And I was sitting in meditation that morning, one morning, so mid-2018 now. And for some reason, I was looking for the source. I was sitting there looking in, what is this thing called Julian, right? What is this body? What is this me? Where is this I? And it was as if there was this thing here. That's me, right? Like a feeling. And I'm sitting in this meditation. I'm just looking and looking and looking. Is that really it? Is that it? Is that all there is to it? Is that it? And all of a sudden there was a light. I cannot describe it, cannot describe the feeling that went with it. And all of a sudden I saw that there is no me, there is no I, there is one energy, there's no body, there's one energy, and we're all it. And I sat there laughing my head off for about 20 minutes because the whole damn thing's just this huge cosmic joke, right? And I remember coming downstairs and I just couldn't function. So I thought, I'll go for a walk on the beach. We live on the beach. So I went for a big long walk on the beach. And I've been gone for about an hour or so. And I'm halfway back and I realized that I had absolutely no memory of walking. There was no memory of the journey. I knew I had a wonderful time. It was a lovely sunny day. But there was no me that was walking. And then when I looked down, I could see this body walking, and it was like I was just a passenger looking out the eyes. And that was the shift. And that's never been any different. Once that realization hits that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, that's it. It's like it's a one-way ticket.
So when the losing track of time, is that something that is happening or is experienced like a bad memory because or not remembering because that it's so new, and or is it something that when I guess you have been accustomed to the new state of presence, is it different then, or
it's it's very difficult to describe, but if you can think of the mind as a video recorder, right? The video recorder is constantly on. And in normal life, we're so into the video recording that we think we're all right. It's a bit like being on stage. You're an actor on stage, and at some point you forget that you're an actor on stage, right? Where after a shift such as this, you're the one that's watching the actors on the stage, including this one. So your body will move. I remember sitting in meditation one day, and my arm moved. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what's going on, right? I did not move my arm. What the hell is this? And then the following day, my arm moved again. I'm like, okay, so I'm not moving the body and the body's moving. And what consciousness seems to do is it gives you little hints. And at first you don't pick up on the hints. It gives you little hints that things perhaps aren't how you imagine they are. And it says in I Am That the consciousness will never give you anything you're not ready for. And it also says that you can't rush it. It's not an achievement. It's not a goal. You can't make it happen. As Nisargadatta says in the book, the apple falls from the tree perfectly ripe when it's time for the apple to fall from the tree perfectly ripe. Okay. It falls effortlessly from the tree when the time is right. So, yeah, last thing I ever expected. It's been a real surprise and a very different way of living. And what's come out of it is when I'm working with clients, as I can see exactly where they are. There's no trying to work it out. I can see exactly where they are within a few words of them explaining their situation, and it could be anxiety or depression or whatever. Just worked with a young man who's had anxiety for 25 years since he was 10 years old. And he'd been to counselling and he had medication. He tried everything. And we sat down in our first session and I explained to him what it was. And he was like, hey, that's it. And the minute he could understand where his anxiety came from, and we traced it back, it came from his great-grandparents to his grandparents to his parents to him, and he'd started giving it to his boys accidentally. And that's where he drew the line. That's when he knew he had to get help. Because he'd struggled for 25 years and he didn't want to do that to his boys that are 10 and 12 or something. So once I'd shown him a few techniques to understand what it was, negative thoughts and feelings are only a problem if we don't know why they come up or how to get rid of them, right? The minute you know why they come up and they actually come up to help us, and then how to get rid of them, you're out of the game. That's it, right? You're free. So we just found the right way for him, for it to make sense to him, and for him to be able to use it. So that was our first session. We did the second session, and we're probably 3/4 of the way through. I said, by the way, I said, do you think you're better? Oh, yeah, definitely. I said, how much percentage-wise do you think you're better? Oh, 80%. I said, what? Well, this is only a second session. How can you be 80% better, right? He said, you helped me understand it, man. Once I understood it, that's it. And what I didn't know is he'd gone straight home and started teaching his boys, and his boys went into school and started teaching their friends, because these techniques are so simple, but incredibly powerful. Once you take that pressure off and you can see the wood for the trees and you can start to understand the game, everything changes.
So what is it that actually makes, what is it that makes us, if we go into sort of the nerdy stuff, I guess, with regards to our mind, so what is it that makes us that way? What is it that makes it, what is it that...
We accidentally learn at an age where we have no choice because of the way the mind works in the human at a young age. We accidentally learn that we are our body, that we are our mind, our thoughts, and our feelings. And we're not. And this is the biggest problem. So it's accidental identification with this body. Let's take my dog, for example, right? How does a dog learn its name? Puppy's just come out of the box, right? It's full of energy. You just keep repeating its name, and every time it comes, you give it a biscuit. And then the dog goes, oh, if I hear the word Luna, that's my dog, and I get a biscuit, and I like biscuits, right? So every time I hear the word Luna, I'm going to go. So unfortunately, what's happening for us is that for us, it's very similar, but much more serious. And even our language is incorrect. So one of the things I teach my clients is, if you can take a film, right? What's the best film you've ever seen? What's your most favorite film, Gideon? What do you love?
My favorite movie. One of them is definitely Into the Wild.
Okay, right. So when you're watching that film and you're totally in it, right? And you just love it to bits, what's happening on a very, very basic level is there are sounds and there are pictures, and you're the one that's noticing the sounds and the pictures. Would you say that's right? Okay. So you're not the film, you're the one that's observing the sounds and the pictures, right?
Right.
Okay. So when we're having negative thoughts or feelings, how is it any different? Right? You can't be the TV, you can't be the film, because you're observing it. So there's me here watching TV there, right? Now, when there's thoughts and feelings coming up, same thing. You're the one that's noticing the thoughts and the feelings, okay? So the true self, if you like, imagine you're at home watching the film, right? And it's all dark and something happens and you jump out of your skin, right? You know what these thrillers are like, they're designed to make us jump. And then your mum or your dad walks in and turns the light on and you're like, I'm on the sofa, right? Oh, I'm okay, right? From your mind's point of view, the mind can't tell the difference between something real and something imagined. That's the first big problem. So when it was watching that scary film and something jumped out at you, the body goes into a reaction because it thinks that's real. Because the mind can't tell the difference between something real and something imagined. So if you look at our language, right, somebody's talking to little Johnny, oh, little Johnny, how are you feeling? Right, so little Johnny says, oh, there's feelings, yes, so they must be me. Oh, I'm not feeling very good today, Dad. Okay, if that language was just a tiny bit different, if it was, hey, little Johnny, what feelings are you noticing? That would keep him away from thinking that he is the feelings, okay? Just like with the body. I've got 4 grandchildren, and I've learnt more from my grandchildren and my dog than anybody else in this journey. And we've got some rough stones just outside the back door before you get to the grass of the garden. And everybody always walks across it in the summer and was going, ow, 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 because we've got no shoes on, right? And little Freya, she's 2.5 years old, she just comes out and walks across it. And my daughter said, hang on, how can she walk across those stones and it doesn't hurt her feet, yet every time we walk across, we're like, ow, ooh, 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 right, because they're hard stones. And it occurred to me that she's not fully identified with her body, right? Her body walks, but she's not fully, this is me, this is my body yet. And the same day, she's out in the garden playing and she falls over and she comes in and she says, oh, Freya hurt herself. She didn't say, I hurt myself. She said, Freya hurt herself, which means she was still observing this body called Freya. Okay. So all these little things started to give me a picture that we accidentally learn to identify with our bodies and our minds. And the one that's noticing the thoughts and the feelings is the true self. So we come away from living in true self to living in mind, and mind is just thoughts basically of yesterday and tomorrow. And somebody says to you, well, how are you doing? Oh, my mind's driving me crazy. Hang on, you're the one that's observing the mind, right? So it's mind there, me here. So the thoughts and the feelings are them, and this is me that's noticing them. But that's the big problem. Everybody is so into the mind, so into the body, that they've accidentally learned that that's me. And what I've found with working with clients over the years, the minute they start to understand that that's wrong, everything turns around. So I call it mind TV. Okay, it's not me; it's mind TV. You're the one that's watching the mind TV, the thoughts and the feelings. So the next problem people have got is they can't shut the mind up. And again, through working on myself 9 years, I started to come across all these ancient techniques to quieten the mind. And the mind is like a small child. It constantly wants attention. So we've all seen the mother, right? She's got some jobs to do and there's a little child, oh, mummy, 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 mummy. And in the end, the mother goes, look, just sort yourself out. I've got to get on with my work. So the mother goes and does her work and the child goes and plays quietly. Well, the mind is exactly the same. The mind keeps going and constantly gets at you because of the attention that it gets. The minute you take away the attention, it shuts up. And it says, okay, if you're not going to listen to me, I'll shut up. And the mind goes and sits in the corner. So all these little things that have happened over the years have formed a very, very different way of teaching that teaches people to basically find and reconnect with their true self. And all what we call stress, anxiety, depression in my case, all these things start to sort themselves out as everything calms down. Once you know what you really are, you know how to quieten the mind, you understand the thoughts and feelings, you're home and dry. It's just a case of using the techniques every day. When the mind goes off on one, you're like, oh, yeah, okay, mind. Yeah.
So
I know you're...
Say again?
So you basically you say to the mind, yeah, okay, mind, I know you're upset. It'll all be okay. It's like as a two-way dialogue starts to happen. And there are some techniques that I've developed which instantly quieten the mind. And you can do these little techniques during the day at any time. You start to feel stress, you just turn your hands over. Okay? Instantly, the body relaxes, the mind relaxes. And what
turn your hand over from like this to here, like this.
Just turn your palms over. So okay. Put them on your thighs. So if you're feeling stressed or you're having an argument or you've been on the phone to your boss and he's shouting at you, you need to calm down. Just lay both your hands, palms down on your thighs. Okay. And the minute you do that, the body gets the message that, oh, time to relax. And as the body comes down, the mind comes down with it. I learned it from Sadhguru in a different context, but it works brilliantly. And all these little things, they're on their own, they're nothing. But the minute you start adding all these little techniques together, and they're very simple, and you just start to put them into your day-to-day, massive changes happen.
So, yeah, I want to get into those things. But before that, the last year or so, I have thought a lot about what you said about when we give attention to our mind, it just runs with us.
Yeah.
And I've obviously focused a lot on understanding, our society and how governments work, and why we do what we do in terms of society. And it seemed to me that the government, I mean, depending on how you look at government, of course, but the way I look at it is that they always want to make us sort of give ourselves away, in the sense of giving them energy. If it's taxes, if it's just rules, they want us to accept what they're telling us in a sort of interesting way in terms of words or whatever.
Well, yeah,
Not to go much too far into that, but it seems to me that it's very similar to the way that you're giving attention to our ego or to our mind, that it runs with us as much as we give it energy. And I don't know if that's the reason why many of us, we get into this space of mind fog or whatever, because we're used to that from somebody. I don't know if that has any similarities or.
The last thing any government wants is for people that don't need anything. Because if the people don't need anything, they don't need the government.
Yeah.
But in terms of the analogy between the two, the mind, once you start to understand the nature of the mind is restless, right? It's always searching, never finding. I use Gollum. I use little models when I'm teaching, and Gollum is the mind, right? My precious. He wants to keep everything for himself, and he thinks everybody's out to get him. That's the mind, okay? But if you look at our true nature, our bodies are mammals, basically. And if you look at, I love all the wildlife programs, and if you watch animals out in the wild, there was one the other day about some Japanese deer or something. If you look at them, 95% of their time, they're peaceful. They might have a quick fight about some water or about who gets the beautiful female, and that's it. And then they're back to peace. If you look at the way our lives have been constructed, and with the scourge of Facebook and social media and all that stuff, our attention has been pulled from left to right 24/7, okay? And the mind loves that, because it needs to know what's going on, what's going to happen, right? What's next, and who's doing this and who's doing that, and I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to be a superhero, whatever the mind bullshit it comes out with. And we get dragged along. And we get so dragged along, we get completely lost in it. And when you start to meditate and you get those little tiny bits of no mind, if you like, those little tiny segments of silence and peace, that's when the mind starts to dissolve. So the reason we're happy when we're young is we're born in right brain. And then society pulls us into left brain, and it keeps pulling us into left brain until we get stuck there. And my job is to pull people back to right brain. So the techniques that I use, you're not learning anything you don't already know, you're just coming back to your true self. And
you're unlearning, kind of.
Yeah, and by using these techniques on a daily basis, the paddle keeps going back to right brain, and eventually it gets stuck in right brain, which is where it should be all the time. Then you've got this constant peace and silence. You go out, you interact with the world, and the minute you stop, you fall back into the peace and silence. So you live in present moment, no choice, present moment. And in present moment, you're not in yesterday, you're not in tomorrow, you're just here right now, and there is no mind in that point. So all of the stress and the anguish and the anxiety, that's all gone, because that's all in yesterday, okay? What I shouldn't have done yesterday, and oh my goodness, what happens if this happens tomorrow? The minute you're in now, that stops. You just handle life, you handle things appropriately without harming yourself or others. And then when you've done that, you stop. That's it.
So is there a difference between the word mind and ego in terms of what you're
talking about? A lot of people use egoic mind. Hawkins used to have a lovely description. He used to say, ego is just the old animal, the ancient animal that's still inside us, that's still inside the human. Eckhart Tolle's got a lovely saying, actually. He says, ego is that voice in your head that pretends to be you. It's just classic, right? And the mind is going, what? Ego is the voice in my head that pretends to be me. And again, he's pointing back to who's the noticer, right? Who's the one that's noticing this? Who's the one that notices the feelings, notices the thoughts? I was in meditation one day, I think it was the end of 2017, and I was sitting in meditation and I saw this thought come up and it flew across the screen of the mind and then disappeared. I can't remember what the thought was, but it's like, oh my goodness, whatever I am, I'm before thoughts because I just saw that happen, right? And this is the problem. We've got stuck in the thoughts and now we think that we are those thoughts. So meditation and various other techniques are just there to bring us back to true self.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting shift you can have at times, but I guess it's do you think is it basically just practicing? And you can get into that now, I guess. That makes sense, but get into practicing presence and meditation and these things. Is it that is the way to get to a shift that will come whenever it's supposed to come?
Well, out of all the teachers that I've studied, I've only found two that had a spontaneous enlightenment at a very young age, and one was Robert Adams. I think he was 14 when it happened, and the other one was Ramana Maharshi. Everybody else has been on a journey of self-discovery. These two, it just happened, and then they had to try and work out what the hell happened. So I've been to all these training courses with enlightened masters and blah, blah, blah. And you look at all the people around you and they're paying tens of thousands, some of them, right? They want to go off to India and they live with their guru for a year or 10 years or whatever. And they're still no better off. And it occurred to me that, and then when I found I am that, again, it confirmed it in there. This isn't going to happen until it's supposed to, right? So the way that I've constructed, or the way that my teaching has constructed itself, I'll just teach you to enjoy life in the meantime. And if it happens, fine. And if it doesn't make any difference either. Right. Because how many people are out there with stress, anxiety, and depression that don't know that you can sort it naturally? Every client that comes to me, they've tried medication and they've tried counseling, and the first thing they say, oh, I wish I'd known it was possible to do it without, right? But you've got to be, most of the people that come to me have tried everything and they're still stressed, anxious, and depressed. And they're at the point I was, and that was, I'm not living like this anymore, what have I got to do? That was it for me, right? This was a no, there was no more choices. I'm not living like this anymore. What have I got to do? And it's that do or die attitude that made the difference. Nisargadatta calls it earnestness or sincerity, you could call it. When you've got to that point where you are going to find your solution no matter what, it's like the universe says, well, he's not listening anymore. He's going to keep going until he gets it, so we might as well give it to him. That's the difference. And providing people are prepared to invest in themselves in terms of the time to just do these silly, simple little things every day until they become our new habits. Everything else does itself, because you can't become something you already are. Now, I call my business Happy Onion because you peel the layers, right? You're not.
I have a little bit of a.
Well, there it is. Yeah. So you don't become your true self. You already are it. All you're going to do is pull the layers off, and there it is. It pops back up. So I remember the first time happiness happened to me. I used to, when my father was alive, he lived in Germany, and we used to go on motorbike tours every year. And I was in a very stressful job working for Siemens at the time. And I went out to Germany on my BMW and really, really stressed. Didn't know if I was going to enjoy the trip. and I got there and I had to do some adjustment on the engine before we set off the next day. And I've got the engine in bits and I've got oil everywhere and it's all over me, and I'm just sitting there singing away, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, there was this realization that I was singing. And I was relaxed and I was happy and I was covered in oil and grease and shit. And I'm like, hang on, why am I singing, right? Before I came here, I was so stressed. And my father came out with a cup of tea and he said, oh, you're happy, lad. And I went, yeah, I just noticed that because I wasn't in the mind. I was doing the stuff on the engine. I was totally in the present moment for the first time for a long time. There was no stress. There was no anxiety. There was just me fixing the bike. So these things creep up on us. But what I found is there are certain ways that we can enhance them. So if your mind is driving you mad, you can do a few techniques and you can quieten it. And once you keep doing it, you start to drop, because that's our nature, right? Silence is our peace, is our nature. Happiness is our nature. You've got to learn it. All you got to do is relearn it. You just got to get back in touch with it and stay connected with it. And that's the secret.
So I guess it makes sense to share how do people get started? What do people need to do? What sort of a few steps or techniques, or what would you suggest?
If you're just a regular person and your mind drives you mad now and again, or you're constantly on the go, your mind won't switch off, then there's some very, very simple techniques that you can do. The easiest one is literally to put your hands on your thighs, as I said, close your eyes and just concentrate on your breath. Nothing else. Just watch the breath as if your life depended on it. And within 3, 4, 5 minutes, you'll notice the temperature just comes down and down and down and down. And you get to this very quiet, peaceful place. And all you really did was turn your hands over. Now, if anybody is really struggling and they really want to get a hold of this, then obviously I do my little 5-session courses with people.
Sure.
And I found over the years, when I first started, it was 10, and then we got it down to 7. But we've found, well, if people are really serious, by the time they've done the 5 sessions, they're in a very different place because they understand this thing, they know how to shut it up, and they're no longer being pushed around by it. And then it's a case of just implementing this stuff every day. It's so easy, but the mind wants to achieve, right? When I'm enlightened, says the mind, right? When I quiet my mind, when I get this, when I get that, the mind is constantly searching, never finding. Whereas the one that's always noticing this stuff, the one that notices the mind activity, that's you, that's true self. So all the big teachers will help you. And what I always say to my clients is, watch a bunch of videos, right? Nisargadatta, Osho, Adyashanti, Eckhart Tolle, and find out which one you resonate with. Which one do you really identify with? So I found Eckhart Tolle first, but he didn't resonate with me for some reason. Then I very quickly found Dr. Hawkins, and I studied him for about 7 years. I used to listen to his CD series, The Highest Level of Enlightenment. I worked in Birmingham, and that was a 6-hour drive, so I used to listen to 3 CDs on the way there, 3 CDs on the way back, and I did that for about 7 years. And every time I heard it, I heard something else. I've listened to this hundreds of times. I've only just heard that, right? It was like, it's almost like it was drip, drip, drip. And you just kept dripping.
Every time we listen or read something, it's not because we haven't read or seen it before. It's because we are changing and we are seeing, we are growing and we are, upgrading ourselves. So we are different. It's
when you're ready, you hear it, right? And the first time that I came across Nisargadatta, he said, the way you know your guru, he's the one you don't like. And I'm like, one I don't like? Okay, so Eckhart Tolle is okay, and Hawkins is okay. Oh, I don't like Osho, right? I really did not like Osho. Oh, really? Osho's the one? Okay, so I started watching a load of Osho videos, right? Because that's what Nisargadatta said, right? Your guru is the one you don't like. And I started watching all this Osho stuff and started buying his books, and he just pulled me in. it was like he took the top of my head off and told me exactly how it worked. And then the guru, by the way, comes from the inside, right? So your inner guide will help you find all these teachers, and you think, oh, this is the one, and then you find this one, oh, he's even better, and then you find Adi Ashanti, and then you find this, right? And then the last guru comes from the inside, because that's where it's always been, right? It's always been the one inside that's been guiding you to find Sadhguru and to find Osho and to find this. And then eventually it all turns in, and you go in and you look, because we're taught our whole lives to look out, right? When do you ever taught to look in? And then you start to look in, and it's like the little flag goes up, and it goes, "Ah, oh, here I am. Ah, oh, there you are." Right? And then you come on to true self.
One of the things that I have gotten back to, but when we started talking together, I think I presented you the material from Bob Proctor, the Stickman. And with regards to personal development and all that, to me that is one of the most profound things that is in any material, because we are thinking in pictures, we're thinking in images with anything, with everything. Doesn't matter what it is, or if we don't have an image for it, we are in some ways confused until we get that image clear, right? If somebody tries to explain something to us, we first understand it when we get the picture of what it is, right? And when we don't have an image of our mind and how that works, then it's very easy to get confused as well. And I find that in addition to many other things, I think it's a very important component to. Not because it's a do or die thing, but it's just it brings some sort of order to something that's hard to put an image on,
Well, it's all a journey, Gideon, and in terms of personal development, as I said, I studied it very, very heavily for 23 years. Right, I didn't even know if the radio in my car worked, because all I ever did was listen to personal development cassettes. Right, it was cassettes in those days, and I was going to do this and do that and do the other, blah, 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 right? And I was going to go out there and I was going to be a millionaire. And look what happened, right? Stress, anxiety, depression. In 2008, I don't want to live anymore, right? Because that all came from the mind. That was right, the driver, the super achiever that's going to do all this stuff. And you may have heard me mention Alan Shelton to you. He's an enlightened master, lives in Hawaii. And he used to be friends with Stephen Covey and who's the other guy? Stephen Covey and Peter Drucker. Okay, huge names in the personal development field. And they used to mentor him, and they used to get together on a regular basis. And Alan became enlightened. Right, he was driving to a business meeting one day, and all of a sudden he realised that he wasn't driving the car; he was just the passenger inside the one that was driving the car. And he was sitting with Stephen Covey and Peter Drucker, and they were talking about this enlightenment that happened to Alan. And all of a sudden, Stephen Covey said, "So everything that we've been doing is just polishing the turd." And they all fell about laughing, right? Because if you're trying to improve yourself, the one you're trying to improve is the ego, right? Because the ego wants to achieve. So it's turd polishing, right? All you're doing is shit polishing, because that's not the true you. And they all fell about laughing. And Stephen Covey was really, really excited, because for once he knew that there was something else after the mind. There's something else after the ego. Alan's just written a lovely book called Pointers to Enlightenment. So the masters are out there. They've all got the knowledge. But we just got to remember what we are, right? We're not even a who or a what.
And also understand that we can actually make a difference by thinking differently and just doing different things.
Thinking is the problem. If you want to get happy, stop thinking, right? That's the biggest problem. Eckhart Tolle says, "Oh, you've got to stop thinking." I remember when I first heard him say that, and I'm like, what? How can I stop thinking? Right? I'm thinking about stopping thinking. How does that work? And he wrote a book called The Power of Now. Couldn't read it. I've got it. Just couldn't stand the damn book. But his second book, which was The New Earth, now that is on a whole different level. That worked for me. That was a brilliant book to read. But it didn't show me the way.
But isn't there a difference between actively and be conscious about what you're thinking in that and just having the mind run you, or you're allowing to have the mind run you? Isn't there a difference?
Yeah, we're a bit like robots, right? We're programmed our whole life. We're programmed by our parents and our school and our teachers and the TV and all the other stuff. And it's not until you start to meditate or you're going to use contemplation, whatever suits you, you get to a point where you're, oh, hang on, there's the mind, because I'm noticing that, right? So I'm something else because I'm seeing that thing. So what is this? And that's the first step. But it all
to be conscious of
who's the observer, right? So all my thoughts are driving me crazy. Okay, who's the one that's noticing the thoughts that are driving you crazy? What? Right? That's the thing. Who's the one that's noticing? Muji gives a lovely example, right? I was on this Muji thing, and he said, imagine that you're a pair of eyes floating in space with no name and no body. And you're like, what? A pair of eyes floating in space with no name and no body? Okay. And that's the closest description you're going to get to true self. Because the body moves around, it walks and it talks, and you're the passenger in it. What Hawkins used to call it, what did he used to call it? We are the involuntary witness. That's what he used to say.
Involuntary
witness. And there's a fantastic book called Impersonal Life. Very, very small book. Life-changing book.
That's the one that we talked about just recently, right?
Yeah. When I sent you the cover note for here. But I've got it in PDF if you want it, if anybody wants it. But it's consciousness gives us. We have to go to the very edge of stress, anxiety, depression, unhappiness before we even get an opportunity to turn around and undo it. It's like we have to keep driving. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be a millionaire, and all this crap that my mind used to come up with. And that doesn't bring happiness, right? The amount of people that I know that are super wealthy, that are miserable as sin, right? They've got everything, right? They've got a big fat wallet and a bank account and a Ferrari and all this shit. And now they're in rehab because they're miserable and they're trying to drink themselves to death. I bumped into a guy who was an alcoholic and a drug addict not so many years ago. And I said, listen, well, you know this doesn't do you any good, right? And he said, yeah, sure. He said, but I can't stop. I went, okay. So when you're drinking and you're taking drugs, what are you trying to get away from? Are you trying to get away from your thoughts and your feelings? And he went, that's it. He said, I just want to shut it up. So that's
what is that dynamic? What is that dynamic of is it I mean, it's just I call it the paradigm. It's a paradigm of habits and
it's a cry from inside for true self. That's what it is, right? You're taught from a young age that you're going to get a big, beautiful Ferrari and a posh job, and you're going to be important. You're going to have a beautiful wife or husband or whatever, right? And then you get all that shit, and you're still not happy. And you're like, hang on, everybody's been telling me my whole life that's what I've got to do to be happy. I've done it all. I've got a university degree, and I've got the big company with 200 people. All you've got is now 200 headaches, right, as well as your own. You're still not happy because you've got no peace of mind. You've got no silence inside. And that's what it's all.
I mean, you've started from the outside and then instead of from the inside out, because you can still have a company of 200 people if you're doing what you truly love, or that makes you happy.
If you've got a company of 200 people and you've got inner peace, you've got everything, right? If you haven't got inner peace, you can't enjoy being on your own if you haven't got inner peace. You can't enjoy being with friends and around family. You're no good at your job because you can't concentrate if you're not peaceful inside, if you're not happy and rooted. Inner peace is everything, and it's not talked about.
So what is your so tell me more about what you I mean, I know what I know, but what are you doing in terms of, I know you're writing, and I know you have created
Yeah.
an
So
interesting game and other things. So if you can talk about that, that'd be cool.
sure. So I'm writing up. Originally, I was going to go out there. There's so many people in corporate life that are desperately miserable and depressed. And once I did my stress reduction, mindfulness, meditation diploma, I was going to go out there and help them. All right. And I don't watch TV much, but the TV was on my while I had it on or something. And there was this program on about teenagers in this country being prescribed depression medication. And these are in the days when we still had proper investigative journalists. And this guy had really gone to town, and he found that there were 13 depression medications that they use. And he'd found all the fake evidence that the companies had made up to say that how wonderful their drugs were, right? And the one thing that all these drugs had in common, they all caused suicidal tendencies. And they were interviewing with these kids that were depressed, and the parents didn't know what to do. And there was this one young girl, and her mum said, I've got to take you back to the doctors. And she said, no, I don't want to go back, because every time I go back, he just gives me even more medication, and I feel even worse. I feel like death. And the mum didn't know what to do. She dragged this beautiful girl back to the doctors, and the doctor just pushed the medication up, right? Went from 30 milligram to 40 or whatever, and 3 days later, she killed herself. And she was just the prettiest young girl. And I remember sitting, it was just heartbreaking. I remember sitting there watching this program. And the following week, there was one about university kids in this country. And they were talking about their stress and anxiety, and they've got to finish their exams and their depression and all this stuff. And as these kids are explaining their problems, my mind is going, well, this would sort that, and this would sort that, and this would sort that. And the program finished, and I sat there for a minute. I thought, oh my God, this isn't for adults. This is for youngsters. If youngsters can learn all about stress, anxiety, depression, why it comes up and how to get rid of it at an early age, they never struggle with it. And at the time, my company was called Calm and Present Training. And I remember talking to my accountant the next day, and I said, look, I think I've got to change the company name. And he said, have you got any ideas? And we're just chatting away, and I'm always doodling with my hands, and I said, well, actually, and I looked across, and there was this little onion with a heart in the middle. So I said, well, actually, I've got this. And he burst out laughing, and he said, Happy Onion. He said, that's what you're going to call this company. And I'm like, what? He went, seriously, Happy Onion. He said, that's for kids. He said, teach them how to peel away all the pressure. And that's how the company name changed. And it became obvious that this is for young adults and teenagers. So I started to write up all my notes to make it into a book for them. And then a few days later, I was talking, again, coincidence, talking to a friend, and she went, hang on a minute. She said, this isn't a book. She said, you use all those little characters when you're teaching, don't you? So I said, yeah. She said, this is a game. So I said, oh, she said, this is a game. If you can teach kids about negative thoughts and feelings and how to get rid of them in a game format, the kids are going to remember it, the kids are going to engage with it, and the teachers, because I've got to teach the teachers to teach the kids, the teachers can't mess it up because the game is set. So the teachers learn about it, the kids learn about it, all their friends work together to help each other. This is a collaborative game. They work together, not against each other. So that they're feeling bad. Why do I feel like this? How do I get rid of it? So, yeah, I'm writing the book up. We're making the game. And then there's going to be a cartoon series for young children, which, again, is going to be a little character called Peely Onion. And he goes on adventures. He's a superhero. And he helps his friends handle negative thoughts and feelings. So, book, game, cartoon series. So that's what's happening at the minute. All crazy, exciting stuff. God knows how it's ever going to get done, but it'll get done if it's meant to.
What is how far are you with the
book? Because I've got no short-term memory, I've had to put everything onto a spreadsheet. So I've got all this huge pile of notes, and I'll just keep going through the notes and checking it's on the spreadsheet, because I've broken the system down into a 3-step system. So it's how did I get into this mess? How do I go out of it? How do I stay out of it? So everything on the spreadsheet is in those 3 columns, and I'll just keep getting out my pieces of paper and checking everything's on there. And then it's going to be very simply worded in a little booklet that you can keep in your pocket. So let's say there's 5 techniques to calm yourself down and quieten the mind. So you try each of the 5 techniques and you work out which is your favorite, which one works best for you, for your personality type. And then you make a little piece of paper. I call it the map, the happiness map. And you keep that in your pocket. So the next time you feel bad, you get your little map out and you go, last time I did this, and you do it again. And you get, every time you do it, it becomes easier and faster until you get to the point. It's a bit like tying your shoelaces, right? Your shoes come undone, you do them up and you carry on walking. So negative thoughts come up or negative feelings come up, you sort them out and you carry on with your life. That's the whole objective of the Happy Onion program.
I have just found a picture that I uploaded here that I'm going to put up on the screen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was the first draft of the box. It's changed completely now. Okay. But it gave us a very good start because it shows all the little, the characters that I use, the dinosaur and the volcano and the wagon wheel and the 0 to 6 and the BS. These are all integral parts of understanding why we like we are and how to live happily. Because once you've got the secret to living happily, everything changes. You just breeze through life. And as you can see, the petal in the corner in the bottom left, there's going to be 7 games altogether. Okay. And each game teaches you something, another life skill that isn't readily taught in schools, right? So finance, relationships, all those good things. All the stuff that are crucial that we're not taught. Cool.
So, yeah, is there anything else to share other than this?
Not really. You know where to find me. If any of your viewers want any help, please don't suffer like I did. I suffered for decades and decades, believing that my stress, anxiety, depression was the way it was going to be for the rest of my life. It doesn't have to be that way at all. There are so many easy things you can do. And once you start, it's like you're on a new treadmill and everything opens up and you're like, oh, actually, life's really good. So I know I talk about happiness and stuff, but what my program is really about is learning to live life with ease. Because when you live life with ease and you just go with the flow, that's when life takes on a whole new flavor.
Cool. And is it correct? And people can get an initial call first, or they can set up an appointment with you first.
If anybody that wants some help, we'll have a free 20-minute consultation, discovery call, whatever you want to call it, just to see if we're right for each other. And if we're right for each other, then we can work together and get your happiness back and keep it, as I always say. And that's all right getting it back. It's knowing how to keep it. That's the secret.
Yeah, consistency in the practice.
Yeah, and it's so easy. It's so easy. But everybody is out there. They're all trying to fix a broken or a dysfunctional mind. Well, the mind is a problem. That's why they can't get anywhere, right? The minute you put the mind to one side and go, okay, park that shit, right? Then all of a sudden everything starts to change.
Cool. Is there anything else you feel like sharing?
I don't think so. Have you got any questions, or I don't know whether any of your participants can send in questions. I'm always happy to answer.
Doesn't look like there's any questions. But you're in the group, so people can comment or whatever, and then you can just answer back.
Yeah, and any time whatsoever. Or if you want to get back on and answer a bunch of questions, I'm more than happy to help out. The more people that know that this is possible, the better lives we're all going to lead, and the happier the planet's going to be.
Awesome. All right.
Cool.
Well, if that's it, then I guess we can just wrap up, and I can say thank you for being on. And this is the 4th episode, and who knows who the next is going to be on this podcaster community, but definitely happy to have had you on. And then this is one of the most important things for me. Anxiety and stress has been an issue, and the times I've really taken my time to focus on what I need to focus on, it's been a lot easier to make a shift. And it's easier than we think, I think.
It's feel your feelings, think your thoughts, and enjoy life anyway, right? That's the secret.
Alrighty. Well, I'll play the outro here.
Having me on, it's an absolute pleasure. And I'll see you all again.
All good. I will tune out and say peace, and may you all be well and safe on all of your unique journeys out there.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, take care. Bye, everyone.
Ciao.
Take care. Bye.